The language of kindness. The rain had stopped an hour ago, but the sidewalks of downtown Seattle still glistened under the streetlights. Daniel Carter walked slowly with his son, Max, who had just turned 7. They had spent the afternoon at the Science Museum, and now they were heading back to catch the bus home. Max wore his favorite green hoodie and carried his backpack covered in dinosaur patches. He chattered excitedly about the robot exhibit they had seen, his small hand tucked safely in his father's larger one. Daniel smiled and nodded, savoring these simple moments. Being a single dad wasn't always easy, but evenings like this made everything worthwhile. The city was alive with the usual rush of people heading home from work. Umbrellas dotted the sidewalks like dark mushrooms, and the air smelled of wet pavement and coffee from the nearby cafes. Daniel guided Max around a puddle, and they continued their leisurely pace toward the bus stop. That was when Daniel noticed them. 2 little girls stood near a shop window, identical in every way. They looked about 4 years old, with blonde curls tied up in matching red ribbons. They wore red dresses that seemed too thin for the chilly evening. Their small hands moved rapidly in front of them, signing to each other with urgent, worried expressions. Daniel slowed his pace. He watched as a woman with shopping bags nearly bumped into the girls, then stepped around them without a glance. A businessman in a suit walked past, his eyes on his phone. A teenage couple laughed together, completely unaware of the 2 small figures standing alone in the middle of the busy sidewalk. The twins kept signing to each other, their faces growing more anxious. One of them looked up at the passing strangers, reaching out slightly as if trying to get someone's attention. But the river of people flowed around them like water around stones. Daniel felt Max tug on his hand. "Dad, those girls look scared." "I see them, Woody," Daniel said quietly. He had learned American Sign Language years ago, when he worked at a community center that served deaf and hard-of-hearing families. He hadn't used it much since then, but he still remembered. He knelt down beside Max. "Stay close to me, okay?" Max nodded, his eyes wide with concern for the little girls. Daniel walked over to the twins, moving slowly so he wouldn't startle them. He lowered himself to their level, crouching on the damp sidewalk. The girls noticed him and stopped signing. Their blue eyes were red-rimmed, as if they had been crying. Daniel lifted his hands and signed slowly and clearly, "Hello. My name is Daniel." The effect was immediate. Both girls' faces transformed. The fear didn't disappear completely, but something else appeared alongside it, hope. Relief. Connection. The girl on the left signed back, her small hands moving quickly. This is my sister, Lily. We lost our mom." Daniel's heart clenched. He signed back, "When did you lose her?" "We were looking at toys in the window," Emma signed, pointing to the shop behind them. "When we turned around, she was gone. We've been standing here, but nobody stops. Nobody sees us." Lily's hands moved rapidly. "We tried to ask for help, but people just walk away. They don't understand." Daniel glanced up at the flow of pedestrians, seeing the scene through the twins' eyes. Though everyone passing by, they might have looked like 2 well-dressed children simply playing together. No one realized they were lost, frightened, and unable to call out for help in a way most people could hear. "You're safe now," Daniel signed. "I will help you find your mom. Don't worry." Max moved closer, watching the conversation with fascination. "Dad, what are they saying?" Daniel quickly explained in a low voice, then turned back to the girls. "What does your mom look like?" he signed. Emma described their mother, blonde hair, wearing a cream-colored suit, carrying a brown purse. Lily added that she had been on her phone when they got separated. Daniel nodded. He stood up and looked around, thinking. The girls had been standing in this spot because it was where they last saw their mother. She was probably nearby, searching frantically. He pulled out his phone and was about to call the police when Max pointed down the street. "Dad, is that her?" A woman in a cream-colored suit was rushing toward them, her face streaked with tears. Her eyes were wild with panic as she scanned the crowd. She was calling out, but of course, her daughters couldn't hear her voice. Danielle quickly signed to the twins, "Is that your mom?" Both girls turned and immediately began waving their arms. Their faces lit up with joy and relief. The woman saw them and ran, nearly tripping in her heels. She dropped to her knees and gathered both girls into her arms, sobbing. The twins clung to her, their small bodies shaking. After a long moment, the woman looked up at Daniel, her cheeks wet with tears. "Thank you," she said, her voice breaking. "Thank you so much." He turned around and they were gone. He'd been searching everywhere. He was terrified. Her hands moved as she spoke, and Daniel realized she was also signing, translating her words for her daughters. "They're safe," Daniel said gently. "They were very brave. They stayed right where they lost you." The woman stood up, still holding both girls' hands tightly. Nobody stopped to help them. He knew this might happen someday, but... She shook her head, fresh tears falling. Most people don't know sign language. They don't even realize when someone needs help. "I know ASL from my work at a community center," Daniel explained. "I'm just glad I was here." Emma tugged her mother's sleeve and signed something. Her mother smiled through her tears and nodded. Emma then signed to Daniel, "Thank you for seeing us." Those simple words carried a weight that made Daniel's throat tight. "You're very welcome," he signed back. Lily signed too, "You were kind when others weren't." Max stepped forward and waved shyly at the girls. They waved back, giggling silently. The mother exchanged contact information with Daniel, insisting she wanted to thank him properly later. As they prepared to part ways, Emma and Lily both signed goodbye with bright smiles, so different from the frightened expressions they had worn just minutes before. Daniel and Max continued toward their bus stop. Max was quiet for a moment, then said, "Dad, that was really cool. Can you teach me sign language?" Daniel smiled down at his son. "I'd like that, Max. He'd like that a lot." As they waited for the bus, Daniel thought about how easy it was to be invisible in a crowded world. The twins had been standing in plain sight, yet no one had truly seen them. Sometimes kindness meant simply paying attention. Sometimes it meant learning to speak in languages beyond words. The bus arrived, and Daniel lifted Max up the steps. Through the window, he could see the evening city lights beginning to glow against the darkening sky. Tomorrow, he decided, he would look into sign language classes for Max. Maybe they would volunteer at the community center together. Some lessons, he thought, are worth passing on. The lesson that everyone deserves to be seen. The lesson that a simple hello can change everything.